Hello, Internet. How are you? I'm with a nice guest today who goes by the name Narwhal on the Internet, who is a comic artist, a drawer, and a writer. And I'm pretty excited to have you, man, because, well, in a way, we are colleagues. Not in the same field, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. It's a pleasure to have you, and especially since as I've seen in one of your recent stuff, you have like a comics going on and a campaign, and man, almost $30,000. That's something.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been growing over the past 4 years. Like my first campaign was like is one my book called Earthbound, and it's $2,000 it raised, and that was like me begging my friends and family to back it. Then a year later in like the US, well, and I don't know if it's like US or worldwide or whatever, but there's a big like movement of independent comics called Comicsgate,
Yeah.
and that got like a rallied. I kind of got in swirled in that whole whirlwind and got a huge audience through the help of Ethan Van Sciver and some
Oh,
other
big
like
name.
big, but yeah, some bigger YouTubers. I got on Ethan's
I
channel.
have a question about Comics Gate, so don't spill the beans right away.
Oh, okay, yeah, we won't get into that. Let me say really quick too, because we were talking just a little bit behind the scenes, and you were
Yeah,
talking about some Belgian history, and
yeah.
one of the things you mentioned was that Belgian did really good in both world wars, and in one of
Well,
them, I think you said it's World War One. They stopped the Germans by flooding a river. Is that
yeah.
World War One?
The First World War, and we didn't did good. It's just that we've been crushed, but we did our best nonetheless.
Yeah, and you slowed them down, kind of. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I was just gonna say that the flooding that's it was kind of cool to hear because I have notebooks and I'm scribbling ideas a lot, and I had scribbled an idea for the last year. I had scribbled like how you could like use a flood tactically in a war by like flooding
Well,
a river or whatever, and
you
it might involve like dynamite or something. I was like, it could be like a cool western or a cool whatever. So I definitely want to research that more because that sounds awesome,
I
and I
can
might ask you more about it or something.
I can give you a few reference. Just 1 second. Yeah. I give
Okay.
you the thing on Discord in private message. So it's called the Battle of Isère, or Isère, maybe pronounce it in English. And this is where the flooding occurred.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because that's like, that gives you that feeling where it's like a lightning bolt. You're like, ooh, that could definitely be a comic. That's something that there's this like natural filtration process because you'll have like 100 ideas, but then over the years, a lot of them you end up not doing them because you can only
Yeah.
do so many. So like, and then some will like rise to the top. That's when like wanted to do for a while now is like something involving a flood. I had the other idea of a flood story is a cat surviving in the New Orleans flood from Hurricane Katrina in like
Mm.
2008, I think it was in America. But just random flood ideas. But
Yeah, no worries. If you want information, you're curious about stuff. Yeah, with definite with pleasure. Especially since not much stuff is known about Belgium. You thought it was an island.
yeah, I know. That's like my American ignorance in general
No
with the
worries,
world.
man. No worries.
Yeah.
It's you know it's a thing I have in my own philosophy. You can't really blame ignorance. If you don't know, you don't know. You don't you can't have the attitude. Oh, you should have known. Well, I don't. So yeah,
Yeah.
no worries.
And it's always an opportunity to learn or whatever. Let me ask you real quick too, is like one question about Belgium is
Yeah.
it does have this huge like tradition of awesome artists. And where does that
Uh,
come from? Or has that just always been a thing? Or you
I
mentioned it's really
wasn't
small.
I wasn't aware of that.
Well, just I just think it's like the comics, like the
Well, we
comics are
have
so.
a very strong bande dessinée culture in Belgium. It's more towards, humor with a very specific character. For example, Tintin, Spirou, and quite a few other. I could name and give you some information, but yeah, it's more toward, classic stories. For example, Black and Mortimer, who's like two cops or detective stuff like that in a noir ambience, So yeah,
Yeah,
we have stuff like that about bande dessinée, but I wasn't aware that Belgium had a reputation of famous artists.
yeah. A lot of, so I think some of my favorite comic artists is Belgian. Maybe he might just be French because they're similar a little bit, or at least for Americans.
Mm.
But it's Bengal is the name of the artist, and he might be
Uh,
Belgian.
you should tell me how it's spelled because I'm not sure.
It's Bengal. I'll Google it too right now while we're chatting here. Um,
Uh, oh yeah, Bengal. Ouais. It is French.
okay, cool. Yeah, he's one of my influences. If you ask that question later, like art influences, he's one of my big ones.
Yeah, and you should know that we we have a weird relationship with France. It's like love-hate relationship.
Yeah,
I think you may have the same, between states in the US. Like one state hate the guts of another state.
yeah, that could be maybe like Texas and California. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know that California is one of the most hated states in the US.
Yeah, they've been ridiculous lately too. But yeah,
To have a bit of introduction of yourself and to make sure I have not false information. So you are a very prolific and very productive comic book writer and artist, and you've done, I think, two or three crowdfunding campaign, all successful.
yeah. If you go way back, I had one that failed in my 20s. I'm 36 now, so
Okay.
yeah. But it's been the past 4 years where I've been basically doing it full time
Yeah.
because of the amount of money that's coming in. I can live off it. I still just live in my buddy's spare apartment for pretty cheap rent, but that actually allows me to. I'm actually sinking a ton of money back into comics, trying to
Yeah.
get like a little mini production kind of thing going where I'm not always the artist, not always the writer, hiring some people. That's kind of the plan.
But yeah, you seem very like a busy man, like always working or always networking, organizing stuff, speaking to other artists. You have a YouTube channel where you do also live stream with other artists. So yeah,
Yeah,
very strong profile.
yeah, I always got 5 or 6 things going on, and then yeah, always trying to network out. I got little schemes, like I mail my books to like celebrities, but I don't know if they get them. Like I'll mail like John Carpenter. I mailed him my comics.
Wow.
I mailed I mailed Frank Miller my comics, but I just got their
My
addresses
favorite
on.
Sin City is my
Or,
favorite comics, man.
oh yeah, I know Frank Miller is so good. He I think maybe my favorite comic or one of them is his Daredevil. He's got a kind of a fair amount, but there's two that are like graphic novels. One of them's called Daredevil Born Again. The other one's called Daredevil The Man with No Fear, I think. And both those are like life-changingly good. They're just so excellent and so fun to read. And some when comics are their best, they're better than TV, better than
Yeah.
novels. And it's not always, but it's sometimes. So that's one reason I like comics a lot.
Yeah, Sin City is a thing that when I discovered it, and to be honest, I first discovered the movie, with Robert Rodriguez, and after that I read the books, and it was something. It was something. I'm not an expert on comics books like you, for example, but yeah, I know a thing or two, and Yeah, Sin City and Constantine, well, Hellblazer, they're my favorite comics.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, that's always good to hear. I'm always curious what people like. What are the classics? Because I'm even still catching up. I'll hear a classic and be like, I haven't read that one, so buy it and try and read it.
So for my first question, it's pretty basic, and I'm sorry if yeah you've heard that one many times before, but can you run us through your material and a bit of story about yourself? Because as I said, you write a bunch of stuff, and you are an active member of the comics community on the internet, and as I said, also you have a podcast and stuff. So can you tell a bit more about the origin story of yourself?
Yeah, yeah, I'm up to almost like 11 books now. Some of those are
Wow.
shorter. The ones I do just for me, where I write and draw 'em, I always like them to be really long. And yeah, so it's like Earthbound is kind of my main big book. It's 2 volumes right now. It'll eventually be 9. I have 6 of the volumes written, and the rest are planned. So
Mm.
like it's like gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. And I'm bringing on a few artists to help with some stuff, but that's kind of probably always going to be me as the main artist. So it's Earthbound, and there's Foreign Agent, which I think I sent that one to you. That
Yes,
one's like a graphic
the
novel.
two soldier in the snow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And
quite
then
enjoyed that one. I didn't finish it, but I think I went almost to half point. They were leaving
oh cool.
the shed and the family, or were about to, and yeah, there was some guy that catch up to them, and like guys from the past and stuff, and but the story and the pitch and the way the character react together, because it was like a machinery with cogs and stuff. It were very interesting. The idea of one of them draw to communicate with the other person, pretty nice.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's kind of like meta art within the art kind of stuff. So that's another big one. And then I have the side project at nights, kind of for fun a little bit, basically, but as like bonus material
Mm-hmm.
for campaigns. I was adapting Nosferatu silent film, and that one I kind of wanted to do because then I'm not writing it. I'm just like going off something that already exists. So it was kind of a fun, interesting process. And then I remastered that and released it. That was my book before this one. And then I've had short stories build up over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So now the current campaign is for the 2 volumes of short story collections that are each going to be pretty long too, like each at least 120 pages. Yeah, and then going back, like I did my first comic when I was a senior in high school, and it was really bad. Looking back, it was so bad, but kind of you don't know when you're doing it. At any point, I was like thinking like, yeah, this is so good, I'm ready. Let me in, coach. I'm gonna be a pro. And then like cut to 3 months later, 6 months later, I look back and I'm like, ooh, that's not so good. I wasn't as good as I thought. But now I'm good and I'm ready. And then cut to 6 months later, I'm like, ooh, I still wasn't good. But I thought, how come I keep thinking I'm good and I'm not? But that's kind of what guides you and why you don't give up as you keep going. Because at any point, you're like ignorant to how bad you are, or like blissfully ignorant and kind of gung ho. And there were points in my 20s too where I like went a year or something not drawing, kind of getting off. I was writing kind of the whole time, but I took some breaks from that. But by the end of my 20s, I had kind of finally gotten decent enough at drawing, decent enough at writing, where I was really trying to make it, and still not quite breaking into the industry, but like producing some stuff here and there. I did get one sort of mainstream-ish job, just like a legit comic job. It was from a kind of new imprint called Dead
So you
Reckoning.
learn almost on the spot, why you were going.
Why I was going, say that again?
I ask if you were learning while doing it, on the
Yeah,
spot.
yeah, yeah, and especially with that first job that I got, because so I was at a comic convention in Tacoma, and a journalist liked my art, so he gave him my card. I got an email from him 2 weeks later, and he's like, "I actually have a book deal, but our artist fell through. We're gonna lose our book deal unless we can get an artist. Can you draw, color, and letter 120 pages in a year?" And I was like, yes. Although that's actually kind of hard to do. Not everyone can do that for sure. And even the ways that you have to do that, I had to like cut some corners or like deliberately make the style a little bit more minimalist. Um, and but that was where I learned like a ton. Uh,
Well, you have to
and that
take
kind of
opportunity.
yeah, yeah. So from that was like where my a lot of my style evolved from that. That book's called Machete Squad. And then through that company, they what they I pitched them for an agent after that job ended, and because I was like kind of out of comic work. This is like kind of how comics work, and it's kind of depressing. Where if you run out of work, then you're like, well, what now? Do I like go back? What am I gonna do? Go back to Fred Meyer working minimum wage or whatever?
Mm.
And that's actually what I had to do. So it was depressing. But yeah, I pitched them for an agent. They were like, everyone here at the office like loves it. We think it's really cool, but we're gonna pass. And I was like,
Ah,
well, shit.
fuck.
Then I'm unemployed. So I'm like at Fred Meyer. That was when I got into Comicsgate, and then that. So in the end, it ended up being way better because I own Foreign Agent now, and it ended up crowdfunding for like 40,000 or something. And it still sells, and it
Mm.
still will sell for the rest of my life. So I'm kind of grateful how things worked out. But yeah, at that point it was like
It's very
kind of like
impressive that you didn't go like to art school and draw from 10 years old, or I don't know. You know the usual backstories of artists. It was really like a spark of an idea at one point in the end of your scholarship, and you went through with it. Like it wasn't planned at all.
yeah, and although I should say sorry too because I did go to art school for a little bit, but I dropped out, and then I just kind of went to regular college. And then I didn't get a job out of college. Like there was no my degree was in art history, so I didn't get any jobs. So I was just working at hotels and stuff. And yeah, then on the side, I had one friend who's kind of a formative friendship, who's like a mentorship, but he was a filmmaker, and he was a really good screenwriter. And he and I co-wrote some scripts together. And I did. I we kind of had this plan in our mid 20s where he's a little older. He might have been 30 at the time or something, but he was trying to get a movie made. So I was doing art for it. And then he was working at a video store at the time, so he was giving me free movie rentals. But he was having me watch all these movies for research that are like these old, like kind of more obscure, like film buff type movies. But I can give you one example is like there's these westerns, these low budget westerns from the 60s by Monty Hellman. There's two of them. They both have Jack Nicholson in them. And a very young Jack Nicholson. And one's called Ride the Whirlwind and one's called The Shooting. And The Shooting in particular is like a really good movie and it's super minimalist. The by low budget I mean these movies were shot and The Shooting it's shot in the desert. There's no sets other than they're in the desert. So it's kind of like how Reservoir Dogs all takes place
Yeah.
in one warehouse. Kind of yeah, it's like those kind of ideas are fun when you stumble upon them. And they're kind of hard to write and to think of like how to make it work with those limited locations or whatever. But a lot of like kind of fun writing kind of stuff comes from that. And so yeah, that the movie The Shooting was a huge inspiration for Foreign Agent, where that kind of idea came from. I'm just thinking of like a minimalist idea basically.
Well, when you start and you try to make a name for yourself and stuff, you have to make do with what you have, and try to compensate the lack of means with motivation and energy and hunger for breaking even, something like that.
Yeah, and it is weird looking back because you'd be like, oh, it took like 14 years until I started seeing uh some actually like making money doing it.
Yep.
So yeah, not really giving up for 14 years, although during those periods I would like think I would give up, but then I wouldn't time would pass and you kind of get back to it. So it's good to not give up. That's like some advice I might give to any young artist or whatever.
Yeah. The usual. What will you say for people who want to blah blah blah?
Yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned Comics Gate, and this is I will ask the question. What's your opinion about it? Because I know that there is different take on the matter, and some member of the Comicsgate community don't agree with other members. So, uh, what's where do you sit in that huge, not controversy, but
Yeah,
movement, so to
it
speak?
is a little controversial. I sometimes if I'm working with the artist, I will pitch them, and if I have to pitch them, I say like, to me, it's an anti-cancel culture movement. Like, and then that's kind of all it is. Like, that's the simplest way to pitch it. So like, and you can even using that as a, what do they call it if it's like a question that'll split people, um, like just one simple question, but
Divisive,
like say that again.
divisive.
Yeah, I guess. But yes, it's uh for example, like Gina Carano, she got like fired by
Yeah,
Disney. So there were people like rooting for her to get fired, and then there were people like being like WTF. So it is like this kind of culture war thing, but for me, and I've met people too that are like, why do you care? That's like another camp.
yeah.
But for me, I really don't like the cancel culture. I think it's very anti-art or whatever. And one weird thing about Comicsgate is so basically those people probably wouldn't want to work with me if someone they like hate Gina Carano for some reason. So these funny like how everything's connected, and it can get like overly politicized. But you also meet people that it's not an issue, and that's awesome. That's kind of where I hope that we just kind of get past it, all the politicization. But that I have noticed because it was controversial. It's like a little bit less so now, but it was really controversial kind of right when it started. That was the YouTube channel Richard Meyer, your boy Zach. He
Uh,
was kind of
I don't know that one, unfortunately.
oh, okay. Well, he's like a pretty big YouTuber too. He was kind of like the Emperor's New Clothes kind of guy. Like
Hmm.
because that was like 2017, where he was saying what everyone was thinking, but no one had said it yet. So his channel exploded, and he was kind of pointing out like all the Avengers got gender swapped or racial swapped, like Tony
So
Stark, or they
it
get
was
killed off and
in
replaced.
the comics community.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that was kind of what started it, but then sorry, but he got um like yeah, like him versus like the other side was like very vitriolic for like a year, and now it's kind of calmed down.
Hmm.
But in that time, a lot of the pros lines were drawn in the sand, and a lot of pros came out against Comicsgate, and obviously like they would never hire you in the mainstream if you're working Comicsgate. But at the same time, Comicsgate is like to me, it's almost like indie comics just in general. Like
Yeah.
almost everyone's like
That's the feeling
yeah,
I
and
had with Comics Gate, because the reason I asked this question is since you are so well, to me, to my humble eyes and humble beginnings, you are pretty, or at least it seems to be an important figure, someone who is listened to, and you know people and stuff. And for me, a little guy from Belgium, even for me who is speaking English and stuff, and this is not the majority of French and Belgian and stuff in Europe. We are not sure how to interpret what is happening in the US about comics. And I have another question about that, but we can go about it right now. So it's confusing for us, you know. We have bande dessinée, we have manga, and with comics, everything turned to shit. Everyone fight, and we don't understand.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it just like I remember thinking in like 2014 or something like comics aren't as good anymore. What's up with that? And you kind of just think it, but you don't really know what's going on. And then it was like, yeah, 2017 was when it started to be like Richard Meyer was one of the people identifying it, and he's like, "Oh, it's like far left extremists putting their political messaging into the comics and
Yeah,
hiring their friends is like what's ruining the comics." And and so that's kind of like sort of the argument, and people will either support that, disagree with it. But so just back to my earlier point is the pros. A lot of pros came out against Comicsgate. That kind of bummed me out because we would totally get along under different circumstances because we all like comics. And there's
yeah.
these old pros. They're kind of, I feel like they're almost like scared, and they could potentially lose their job too. So they're coming out against Comicsgate, almost being like bullies to like indies, I was just like a 30-year-old kid trying to make it in the industry, and
Mm.
I got all these old pros that would normally in a different time we would be friends and they'd be mentoring me. Instead, they're like attacking me, trying to ruin my burgeoning career. So the whole ecosphere is kind of like, unfortunately, it's like tumultuous and crazy. But then there's a period too where it felt to people like it was almost like a gold rush, because Richard Meyer and Ethan, they were two of the first, but they crowdfunded their comics in the independent sphere, and there was such a thirst for comics that weren't like kind of that didn't have this far left politics in them,
Yeah.
that they were just like trying to be good, like nothing but entertaining comics where you respect the fans or whatever. You don't get called racist or sexist if you don't like the comic, that kind of stuff. They both raised $250,000 each. So it was like half a million raised
Yeah.
right off the bat, and people were jumping in making 100,000, 200,000. My first comic made 8,000. My second made 14,000. My third made 30,000. So I was slowly building up. But there were these big guys making 250,000, and Ethan, his campaigns will still make that. His Cyberfrog book, it'll make 1 million, and that's still
Yeah.
happening. But
I remember
so
a
yeah,
guy named Raging Golden Eagle, something like that.
yeah, he did like 400,000 or something.
Yeah.
Um, so one thing though is another little funny element of the history of it is there were a lot of people that came in kind of wanting a piece of that action, but not, they weren't legit. They weren't willing to do the work.
Mm.
And so they end up getting really bitter for some, and they end up like hating Ethan, hating Richard, hating Comicsgate or whatever, because they're not getting a piece of the action the way they hoped they would have, when they think it's like easy money or something. And then there's fans who got burned here and there by that kind of thing, where even just one example, there was one book from this creator called Critias. I'll name him so people don't think I'm accidentally talking about them or whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, Critias he raised 40,000, but he spent it all and the book wasn't done, so then he kind of ran away with the money. Basically
Eh,
nobody got their book.
not cool.
So people hate that, and that burns the entire community, because then they're worried about. So now a lot of people, they're very nervous about first time creators, and then they're a lot more accepting of once of a second time creators. If you've ran a campaign, fulfilled it,
Yeah.
then they trust you. Then yeah, then it's kind of time to just really start get moving. Hopefully, that kind of thing.
Show a little bit of carte blanche, as you say.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally understandable. Understandable. Sorry, English is complicated. But
oh
yeah,
yeah,
this is the same for us in Europe. I did two campaign on a French crowdfunding website, and I was a bit nervous about that, but they succeeded, and I was happy. And I've seen that if you put the work and you have a bit of help from the community and other people, or maybe customer, we can say that way, yeah, it can work, but you have to put the sweat and the tears in it, or not, it's there is no value in the product.
yeah. Yeah, it's a lot more connected to the customer. Like there's the direct interaction, just almost selling directly to them.
Yeah.
You're mailing directly to them. You're the one printing and packing and shipping the book. And they all really like that, and I like it. And
Yeah, same.
but yeah, like on the flip side, yeah, like if someone, this is like maybe like an advice aside, is like, yeah, like don't be negative, don't be entitled, that kind of thing. Like and it's not that you would be, but anyone,
Yeah, everyone.
that is obviously, yeah,
Yeah, this is an attitude that I never understood, that if you work as a freelance or whatever the fuck, a self-published artist or whatever, people don't you owe you shit. You are coming in the
yeah,
world with something to offer, and you have to prove yourself first. I know it's sad and it's a bit it sucks to be honest, but yeah, you have to prove that you are worth something. And if it's only after that, then yeah, you can be a bit entitled, or say, well, I did something nice. Let me show it to you. Let me prove that it's worth your time, your energy, your money, and stuff. And this is where you can engage a bit and negotiate. But at first, you're just a nobody, and you have to accept that.
Yeah, yeah. You're kind of just knowing sometimes it does take multiple campaigns, multiple years. There'll be a point where you're ready to with where your art will have or writing, art or writing will have like a response. And with crowdfunding, it's interesting because the writing often that doesn't get seen until they get the
Yeah.
book. So it's only the art is what they're buying
Yes.
the book based on. And so yeah, the art's very important. And like I mentioned, like in my 20s, I would at any point I'm like I'm ready, let's go. But then 6 months I look back and I'm like, oh, I still wasn't ready. I wasn't that good, but I thought I was good. What is that phenomenon like? And a lot of that.
Apparently, I lost you. I don't hear you anymore, man.
Oh, 1 second. I
No,
still
you're
see
back. You're back.
myself.
You're
I'm
back.
just
You're
gonna
back.
wait. Oh yeah, cool, nice. Yeah, I don't know. My internet probably just hiccuped.
Well,
But
we
oh, I
we
was
have
just
like
saying
a
that.
whole continent between us, so
Yeah, yeah, and I was just saying, like the independent comics, there's old pros doing super pro stuff. There's first timers doing like amateur level stuff, and that's fun to back too. And you can read some of that, and you'll find some gems. But
yes.
those won't raise as much money, obviously. And then yeah, and then it can be a problem if you're on the amateur level, but you think you're on the pro level, like me and like I would have been in my 20s or whatever. And that with that, you just gotta kind of go through it and improve, and in time you'll naturally find,
Well,
you
the
know.
frustrating part also I found, well, it's my Achilles heel personally, is I have very hard time, promoting, communicating, networking. It's oh man, it's it's my cross to bear. But I have medical difficulties, since I have Asperger's syndrome, so socializing and stuff is very hard. But I found that even with the best attitude and the best wishes for people, and you want to give back and stuff and everything, people sometimes try to to take the ladder back. I'm not sure I'm using the metaphor efficiently, but they succeeded, but they are not willing to help newcomers.
Yeah, yeah, and I think yeah, unfortunately, it's like the you almost got to let it brush off your shoulders, or like it doesn't slow you down, doesn't get you down, doesn't get you negative, because staying positive is definitely pretty important. At least for me, that's what I think of as like general advice. But and hopefully that doesn't happen too much, where I do feel like yeah, like in your case where if you're launching a book soon, yeah, like you can hop on my channel sometime. You'll probably meet a few other people. You can hop on their
Oh,
channel. So
I, I,
there's a little.
I didn't even thinking. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just talking in generals because some guys advise me. You should get in touch with how is it? I think it's Razorfist and Mauler or something. And yeah, I tried to reach out to these guys, and they didn't even care to answer. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, he might be too big. I don't know how many followers he has, but some of them they get like so many DMs a day they don't even
yeah,
check
yeah. I
them.
understand.
Yeah, so I don't know.
But some of them say, "Oh, I read every email, I read every comment," and I don't know. It's not,
Yeah.
I'm not salty or jealous or anything. It's just I don't say that if you don't do it.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But yeah, I understand. They are very busy. They have like enterprise and company with sometimes 1 million in the bank. I understand. I don't live in illusions. I'm nobody. But yeah, it's still a bit harsh sometimes. Like, how the fuck can I be known? How the fuck can I be in touch with journalists and stuff? And people say, oh, there is this new guy coming. The thing is amazing, and at least an opportunity to play the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I got like almost maybe lucky. with kind of sort of related to Comicsgate, but it was Richard Meyer, his big YouTube. He saw Earthbound, kind of liked how it looked, backed it. Then he read it, and he did a YouTube video about Earthbound, which was my first book.
Mm,
And he said he like really liked it. He gave it a real strong recommendation. He doesn't do like A's or out of 10, but it was like very positive what he had said.
mm.
And and so it sold out overnight because of that. So that leveled me up a big time too. That was one of my kind of big from there. I had a bigger audience, and so it was like the help of a bigger channel. But that too, that's like a year or two of being in the community, of kind of talking to him here and there, just in passing. Then it does kind of happen where I'll get leveled up by the help
So
of a
you
bigger channel.
also had hard time connecting with other people to make yourself known.
Yeah, yeah, you're just kind of out there. But it is weird because you're out there on faith, hoping that yeah, like something will kind of happen and break through. But in the meantime, too, you're just making comics and putting them out. So that's enough to keep me going a lot of times anyway. That's like my day to day is just drawing and writing comics. And it is like when the time comes to put them out, I could see how and I can even still kind of relate, like you want more and more readers, and if that number's less than you might hope, you kind of like, how can I reach more readers? It's this a lot of hard work to create these books. I wish more people would read them, but that naturally, there's almost, yeah, nothing you can do other than make comics every day, network, and put them out. And then, like, yeah, I think of these schemes, but nothing's even come of my schemes so far where I'm like mailing my
Scheming.
comics to celebrity. Yeah,
My
where
plan to
I'm
conquer
mailing
the
my comics
world.
to yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm mailing my comics to celebrities or whatever. Like another funny one is Red Letter Media. Like they're a movie review on YouTube. They're huge. And just I know one of them kind of likes comics or used to work in comics a little bit. So I mailed them my comics too. Um and yeah, it's like the probability of that, I mean, it might be less than 1% that that's like fruitful in any kind of way. But still, it's like just trying stuff makes me feel a little bit like the due diligence or whatever. It makes me feel a little bit better
Mm.
that I'm attempting some of the stuff.
And speaking about the comics industry, because we talk a lot about them, and you mentioned many names, and Comicsgate and other guys doing crowdfunding and stuff. How do you feel about the comics industry state at the moment? Because from my point of view, and I'm not in the US, so it's not the same perspective, but I see that manga is devouring all the market. So is it
Yeah,
a logical phenomenon to you, or is it false, or?
yeah, yeah. It's like the mainstream comics, the quality is really bad, the sales are really bad, but they'll kind of argue with you about that. It's funny. One of the one things that Comicsgate will say, they'll say like the mainstream sales are super low. You guys, the industry's almost dead. It's on its last legs, and they're like, no, it's not. We're having better sales than ever. And they'll show a graph, and the graph will include manga. And we're like, no, this is the whole point. Manga is destroying you guys. You can't include that in the graph to prove that you're getting good sales because they're the manga's the thing that's um replacing you. And yeah, like I don't know, people in
Yeah,
the
and
indie
the thing
sphere.
with manga is that it always had a very hard time going into the US market.
Yeah, and it more and more it's been kind of, yeah, getting picked up. Obviously, anime is huge.
Yeah.
Manga, they have still, I haven't read as much as comics, but they have like great storytelling,
Oh man,
and a
yeah.
lot of it. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, way different than the comics. The comics are like embarrassing. I'm trying to think, like Tom King is one example. He's like an ex-CIA guy who writes for DC Comics, and he writes a lot of Batman, and he turned Batman into like a really like emotional like cuck kind of based, like just like a real like pussy, and everyone hated it, and he like ruined Batman, and like so no one's like gonna that's not gonna be like remembered as
Yeah, and
a
they
good
also
time.
you mentioned that earlier that they turn every major Marvel heroes into female or change race, or one of the main thing that shocked me, it's been a while, it's that Captain America was a Hydra member, and what I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
why, how, no.
yeah. That was an early
Yeah,
one that was stupid and yeah, a sign of how ridiculous things are
it's like
getting.
ruining all the basics of the comics mythos, because people tend to forget that, especially outside of the US, as I said, because I have very different point of view from you, since and this is one of the thing I will touch with you later, is that at one point, not today anymore, unfortunately, but comics was like a national treasure of the US. It was like a sacred thing, and everyone knew Superman, everyone knew the X-Men and stuff like that. And today, all the hero that are from sometimes 100 years. It's like, I think that Batman or Superman is like 90/30 or something like that. No, you it's criminal to me to do that, and it's no surprise that something come and take its place.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, a lot of people are going to indie comics to get that fix, but a lot of people like mourn like that their favorite characters have been changed beyond recognition, like Batman, like Superman. And there's weird stuff behind the scenes like that Ethan talks about, but like DC, they don't like paying the royalty rights to the families that own the characters. So one of them is Superman, like they have to pay a lot of money so they can save money if they don't even do Superman books at all. So what they did is they switched it to his son, so they call him Jonathan Kent is like the new Superman. So
Oh,
it's
that's
not Clark Kent.
slow. That's slow.
Yeah, yeah. So now they aren't paying the family anymore. And then they made Jonathan Kent gay, which is whatever is gay Superman and like stuff like that. But yeah.
That's very low. That's weasel. That's I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah, so it's like the industry is like I don't know, it's like pretty much worthless, and I don't know what'll happen. Indie comics hopefully keeps growing. It might move to replace it. We might try and get more into like manga, what they're doing, like even manga format, even dabbling in that. Maybe some web comic kind of stuff. Always trying to think about because right now, like comic, like so the biggest number I've seen of the indie comics is I Saw 'Em
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Eric July just launched earlier this summer. Yeah, he sold like 40,000 comics, which that's for a trade sized comic. 40,000. That is four times bigger than Batman. So he's like
He went to
destroying.
almost like 3 million, I think.
Yeah, yeah, he raised 3 million. So that and
Wow.
that number 40,000 though, that's kind of the highest I've seen. Whereas for trades, that's really high. But in the 90s, and a single issue, which is a little bit different than trades sales, but a single issue would sell over 1 million, like constantly, like Spider-Man, X-Men. So there was like 1 million comic readers out there. Now there's
Mm.
only 40,000 um, that you can maybe even hope to get. My books, like I have like between 800 and 2,000 readers, kind of. If I
Man,
hit 2,000, then I'm really
I wish I
successful. But
had that kind of number.
yeah, but yeah, you always it is great, but you're always wondering like, oh, how can we get that bigger? I'm not even sure. Will it naturally grow over time? I'm sure that's part of it too. And you definitely want to keep respecting the customer, keep thinking about kind of the art first, not
Yeah.
really having these ulterior motives of
Yeah,
any
this is
social
a thing,
engineering.
you talked about that, and I didn't answer because I hate to talk about politics and ideology and stuff in my channel. I'm okay with philosophy, and I'm okay, like getting things into context. But speaking your own personal beliefs and position in political issue, I don't like that. But yeah, the comics state is, there is only politics to my eye, again, from a Belgian guy. Like, I think this is a new Spider-Man thing, with the girl is like a cripple with a pride flag and socks with the trans movement color stuff like that. What are you telling?
Yeah,
What are you telling? What's the story? What's the where's the soul?
yeah, yeah.
I
I
know
know
it's meaningless to speak about soul, but yeah, this is not the
that.
friendly
That's when
neighborhood
we're.
spider.
Yeah, I know. That's when we're like the non-political position would get called political no matter what. Yeah, and you get called like transphobic or whatever. That they use that as a shield from the criticism.
Mm.
That's kind of how it started. Was like, hey, these books are bad, and they're like, you're just sexist. It's like, no, we're not. uh, seriously, the books are bad. What are we gonna do about this? Yeah,
Well, apparently for the big boys, Marvel and DC, it's milkshake stuff. I don't know. I don't remember the whole story, but I knew there was something with milkshake and people were called sexist and homophobic, and I don't know.
yeah, that's kind of how it started. The sort of the beginning, and it was Richard Meyer. I don't know if he coined it, but it was they were calling the editors at Marvel, the assistant editors. There was like 8 of them or something, and they're all like girls in their 20s, and they were calling them fake geek girls. And
Well,
then they were yeah, so then they were getting called sexist for that, which is I don't know. Yeah, so that's kind of how it all
yeah,
started.
it remind me a lot with the the whole remake stuff that everything is going through right now with Lord of the Rings. Soon there will be a Blade movie, and oh, it pains my heart. Blade, I want Wesley Snipes again.
I know.
Ah man, the
Yeah,
the the,
I
the
know, yeah, it is kinda all similar of how it
yeah,
feels. It feels really weird when things that you like are getting kinda messed with like this.
but
And
it's
Blade, they're gonna do it too. I've been scared to look, but I'm sure I can already tell you I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna feminize Blade. He's not gonna be jacked. He's not gonna be badass. He
yeah.
might he might still be like, yeah, like a little sleek and sly, but he's gonna have
Yeah,
like a pencil
Blade is
neck.
supposed to be, a snappy, supposed to be, a bit of a provocateur, and but is also very confident and very competent. And when you see the picture with the new guy, I know the movie has been delayed and stuff, but it looks like a college professor who has, I don't know, is on toilet and shitting himself. I don't know, but it's not Blade.
Oh man, that's crazy. Do they put a female character in and make her way more competent than him? That's another like
No,
thing
no.
they
I
always
just
do.
see just blah, blah, sorry. I have just seen a picture with the logo, and it's almost he looked almost like Morpheus from Matrix. He looked like
Oh, weird.
constipated.
Yeah, yeah,
I will give you the picture I've referenced because I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, I miss Wesley Snipe dearly. That goes without
yeah. Me too.
saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. It's not as good as Wesley Snipes. I like that actor, that guy too, but he's no Blade.
Yeah.
But Wesley Snipes did a Comicsgate book actually. I forget
Oh.
what it's called though. Yeah, it's because there's one kind of dude sort of in Comicsgate who like he works in Hollywood, and yeah, so he had the hookup. So they partnered with Wesley Snipes and released a book. Kind of, like they did that. It wasn't technically Comicsgate, but it was in the indie sphere, crowdfunded. They did one with Keanu Reeves
Yeah,
like
I
last
I
year.
was almost ready to ask about that. I think it's Berserk, but with weird letter and spelling, with an
Yeah,
immortal
yeah,
soldier.
Berserker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
looked
yeah. So
interesting.
they yeah, it does look cool, and that's this thing. But that is something that's going on with comics industry in general. Indies a little bit, but there's this thing. This is something Richard Meyer talks about, but he calls it the Netflix pitch, like syndrome. But a lot of comics are just they're trying to get a movie deal or a TV show deal, and you can tell they're not even trying to be a fun comic, and they'll have like a lot more talking scenes and
Mm,
stuff like that. Like
mm.
they're just not as good, and
I
so
see
you'll
what you mean.
see you'll see stuff like that.
Yeah, and
Say that
I
again.
go back to the the girls in their 20s, eight assistant director. They, of course, they are fake geek girls. Um, it can't be like eight person, eight girls in their 20s. I'm sure that they've read almost no comics at all. They can't name like three members of the X-Men. Uh, this is not serious. This is not passion. This is not love for the craft. And ah, man, it's depressing. I knew that comics was in a bad shape, but you even worsen my intuition.
Yeah, that's funny. And like your reaction, I feel like it's very reasonable, and especially it can be backed up with examples and facts pretty quickly and easily. And that was the controversy that got it all started. That got that everything. So it's like kind of a reasonable thing, you know. So it's like
Yeah,
yeah, they were hired like above the merit of what they normally would have been, and they started hiring their friends, and that the industry started going downhill from there.
yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
almost
like
like
just
you. Yeah, go on, go on.
oh, just for example, like there's one woman editor that I don't know her whole story, but I've been reading books that she edited in the 80s. Her name's Catherine Berger. And her deal, a little bit of what I know is, I think it might have been her idea, but they were expanding kind of, and so she goes as a liaison to Europe. So she worked for DC. They start their new imprint, which is like the super famous imprint. What's it called? It's Vertigo. They start Vertigo
Oh
Comics.
yeah,
She goes to Europe, and then she brought over Grant Morrison and Alan Moore and like two other
oh
guys,
yeah,
uh, Warren Ellis maybe. She brought all these guys that are legendary now.
yeah.
I don't know if she'd say she discovered them, but she was the one with the vision to like pull this off.
Yeah,
And
for
she's like
people
a
who,
genius.
sorry to interrupt, but for people who don't know, Warren Ellis or Garth Ennis, I don't know what name you said, is the guy who did Hellblazer. Alan Moore is V for Vendetta. So what the biggest name possible.
Yeah, yeah. These are like the most famous guys in comics other than Frank Miller, who is American. These other guys are, yeah, like Europe. They're like British and like Scottish,
Yeah.
and maybe some others. But yeah, that was all her. So like there is like this tradition of like badass female editors. And yeah, it is not when you pick up at a Comic-Con a cute girl to be your work girlfriend or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, but it's crazy because it's only in the geek and nerd culture that you can see such phenomenon. Because if you would do the same for, I don't know, a car or a plumbing system or an electricity on your house, people would die.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. That it is like that.
It's I
That's
don't
part of that.
understand.
It's a little bit political, I guess. You know, yeah, it's like this weird political thing that's happening. And
Yeah, it reminds
yeah.
me a bit of Jim Morrison, the Doors guy. We are in fuck sorry English. Uh, he was interviewed on the radio and he was asked about the hippie movement and stuff, and he came pretty much like against the hippie movement, saying like, well, these guys can do that only because we live in a society of opulence and plenty of resource and stuff. If we were like fighting for food, none of these guys would be hippie.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
very,
Yeah.
eye opening.
Yeah, they have like that saying or whatever. They say uh strong men create good
Yeah,
times create weak men create hard times create strong men. But that cycle, yeah, and that's sort of happening. We're at this like death and rebirth of the comic industry is happening right now, and it is kind of the indie sphere where it's like rising like a phoenix. Or Razor Fist was the guy who coined the term the Iron Age of comics, where
mm,
like yeah, there was like Golden Age, all these ages, Silver Age, blah blah blah. The age we're at now is like Iron Age, and it's like this is after the death of the main industry. This is getting rebuilt, uh, and it might take a couple years. But we're all here. We're kind of living through history potentially, but you never know. Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah.
Yeah, and it gets me to another question about the comics states and movement and stuff, because you pretty much say that it's only the indie creator that keep the comics art alive, because the main name of the industry are just buried or not even aware that they are buried. So um, is the crowdfunding system the only way to succeed in the field right now? Because apparently, from what you are saying, it's not really an option to apply as an artist job at the big boy name, or even try to go to the European market with bande dessinée or even manga. So is only crowdfunding?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know for sure, but that's what I think. I know for one, Marvel or DC, they don't pay that good anyway. Like indies would actually pay better if you
My
work
God.
for like Ethan or something. Yeah, it's crazy. And so that is not really a path. As far as indies, like sometimes indie books, you can go through what's it called, diamond distributors, and you can get your books in stores, but you don't make that much money. It's more to do it like maybe there's a point where you would, but it's more just to do it to get out there and to have people like to say your books are in stores. And that's like even like we don't even do too many comic conventions these days because you're making most of your money live streaming on YouTube and crowdfunding. That's kind
Yeah.
of the business model that exists and works. And then yeah, people are
It's
dabbling
like
and thinking about
the
messing
hard
with
nerd culture of making a living.
yeah. Yeah, but I do think like some possible experiments that I'm even curious about are expanding into web comics, expanding into manga, trying to reach bigger audiences that way is it, I'm curious about that. I think there's another book that's doing really good. I forget what it's called right now. It's like America um do you know what I'm talking about? It's here. I'm gonna Google it real fast. Let me see.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah,
Um,
to get back to my remark of the hard nerd way of making a living, it's almost like that. You do drawing, you do storytelling, and you stream on the internet. I don't think there
yeah,
is
yeah.
much nerdness more than that.
I know. Yeah, it's funny. And it oddly doesn't get yeah, like some pros will try to do it and they can't. Like they don't like doing the YouTube thing. They don't like they're too prideful to pack and ship their own books or whatever. But yeah, like I kind of enjoy that. And there are if you expand and get bigger, you can hire fulfillment services. And so there's ways that the indies can do that. The book I was thinking of is called Common America.
Mm,
And yeah, they're very successful, and they've done the similar business model of like they do even lower price points for one, and they get more backers. I don't know where they're at, but they might hit like 10,000 backers at least each time.
nice.
And what, but and yeah, so their business model is just it's that similar crowdfunding thing, but they're doing very good, and they kind of moved off of Indiegogo. They might do their own website. Some people do that.
Yeah,
ISOM did
like
that or
I
July.
somewhere.
But I think one of the things Common America guys might do is they might have a budget just for commissioning um, commissions. So some of their budget, they're just hiring people to draw their characters. So there's this a constant stream of their characters being drawn on social media, and that's kind of a interesting idea. And I don't even know if they're doing that for reals or if it's just a lot of fan art or whatever. But I was thinking about that myself of like setting aside a budget of whatever, like $1,000 or something, try and get like 5 commissions and and when you're launching your campaign, you're having these kind of cool pieces of art come out that aren't even necessarily for the book. It's just for marketing or something. But
Mm. Well, marketing is always the key to success, to be honest.
yeah,
Or at least that's what I found myself. But yeah, this is always the question I'm asking myself is it the same in other country than mine? Because here in France, Belgium and stuff, it's it's very special place, and I'm always wondering if it's the rule or it's just my own experience in this special place in the world.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know it is interesting to talk to you because hearing your perspective from Europe and from Belgium.
Well, the thing is, in Belgium, France, and the other countries like that, Germany, Spain, Italy, we are not much versed into comics. It's much more open to manga. But we
Mm.
do have some, but it's not, like the cliche of the US or Canada with comic book store and stuff. Here we don't have that. We have stuff for regular books or bande dessinée, video games, even though that is dying. But yeah, it's to be honest, it would be pretty hard to find a comics, good old comics store in Belgium, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
It's
think,
dying in America too. The
yeah.
stores. It's a lot of it's online. Yeah, but
And speaking about, the crowdfunding and the strategy that artists make to try to make a living themselves, do you think there is still a place for original storytelling and creating your own universe anymore? Because I see, and there is definitely a sensation that the market is oversaturated, and especially, with this political context, you can easily be singled out for a crime of, being for big stuff or wrong thing, and this does not help at all your reputation.
yeah, yeah. I wonder because yeah, on one hand, people are sad they kind of miss the real Batman, the real Superman, real X-Men who are like gone now. You can't bring them back because you can't do a Batman comic because you'd get sued or whatever. So sometimes, yeah, and then if you do like your fake Batman comic, no, it's not going to be the same. No one's going to
Yeah,
care as much. So, but naturally, some things from the indies are kind of growing, and the excitement's growing, and it might take time to and multiple. But I feel like Eric July's I Saw Him. I just read that one actually, and he's building a huge comic universe, and I'm like, I can get on board from the ground zero, and that way it's a little bit more like manga. Like we're
mm,
reading number one, then it's going to be number two, number three. We're starting a story. It's not really where you're jumping in on a character who's existed
yeah.
for 100 years, and you get to see a new story with them and have all that baggage and context, which is actually kind of fun and awesome. So yeah, it's a little bit different challenge and situation as storytellers that we're all in. But these things are like Cyberfrog is like that. For me, Earthbound is growing a little bit like that, where um, people hear about it sometime before they meet me, just within the comic sphere a little bit. And they'll want to jump in. They'll be like, "Ooh, I've heard about Earthbound. I'll check that one out." And there's like volume one, volume two, but yeah, these characters get built up to where there could be spin-offs eventually of them or something.
Mm. Yeah, because you cannot, at least in the comics sphere of things, you cannot find your beloved character anymore. For example, I will talk a bit about myself. In the superhero type of comics, my favorite was always and always will be the Hulk. And I have come to terms that with the idea that I will never have another interesting and enjoyable Hulk depiction in cinema or TV show anymore. The last one was Edward Norton, not perfect but still okay. And with Mark Ruffalo, no, it's not the Hulk. It's a depressed Hulk. And
Yeah,
you have to tell goodbye to all of this character. You spoke about picking up an issue with a story of a character who have his own rules and past and stuff like that, and I cannot see that with the Hulk of Mark Ruffalo and She-Hulk and stuff. Like he's knockout with a car. He's okay with a woman saying that, oh, I can handle stress more than you. The guy had his own parents trying to kill him.
I know.
There is
Yeah, yeah.
no
See, so
way,
you're
no
you're
way.
naturally saying, yeah, you're picking up all this stuff that everyone's noticing, like what's going on here, and you just wonder, is it gonna have to, yeah, like it's gonna have to crash and burn, and maybe yeah, like in 10 years they get back to basics and you get some natural Hulk stuff. But yeah, it is kind of sad knowing that it's kind of gone. The version that you loved or whatever, no one's doing that
Yeah,
anymore. And then yeah, it is this weird thing of like you could do a Hulk style character in the indie sphere, but it still wouldn't quite be the same.
yeah, never,
But I don't,
never the same.
yeah,
Especially
yeah,
since Stanley passed, I think that the floodgate were open the moment he passed away. Like everyone say, okay, we can do whatever the fuck we want now. It's like, I know he
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
had much hand in things anymore, but you know there was still the symbol and you know the guard at the gates. I don't know, but yeah, it's if, for example, I still want to see a nice Fantastic Four movie because it was a very nice setting, you know, the Fantastic Four, the Doctor Doom, or I don't remember the name, Fatalis, the wizard guy. Yeah, it was interesting, and we won't see any more of that. And it's sad, and in the same way as you said, you can do your own stuff, but it will not be the character you love, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
yeah.
I don't know which one you had a hard time saying goodbye to.
Yeah, maybe Wolverine. I loved him, and he is just funny. Like they, he got replaced by a girl, I guess. If you name anyone, they something happened to him and they're gone now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, that's what I figured out. As I said, I'm not much of a comic reader, but yeah, I've seen that with Iron Man, it's a black girl. Thor is on a Thor girl. I don't know which
yeah,
one is original anymore, like the original version.
yeah. Yeah, because they just call him Wolverine, even like in the case of it was X-23, I think, but they made her, they just started calling her Wolverine, and she's like, I am Wolverine. And then they
Ah,
have Logan, like in the dialogue, he's like, she's faster than me, better than me, stronger than I ever was. She's magnificent. And I'm like, oh, this is so cringy.
yeah, this yeah. And there is also, I didn't read the thing, but I'm sure there is no like passing of the torch, you know, a test or respect for the previous Wolverine. It gave me like a Star Wars vibe with Rey, like I am Rey Skywalker. No, you're not.
Yeah, yeah. It is like that. This phenomenon is everywhere of where they're really messing with what came before that, and that like is a tradition too. Like it had been going well for a long time where the idea is you come onto the character, you're standing on the shoulders of giants, you have to respect the canon, respect the character, you're trying to add to it, you're not trying to tear it down and destroy it and build it something new. That's kind of like, yeah, where that weird political activism almost comes
Yeah.
in, where they're deliberately destroying these characters so that they can replace them. And yeah, it's kind of gets creepy almost the more you think about it.
Yeah, and I think that they also did that with the because I was thinking while you were talking about one character that was, you know, a respectful next generation, and the only one only one that came to my mind was the sidekick of Batman, you know, Robin, Nightwing, and the other person that helped Batman, because all of them had at least a minimum to prove themselves, to be
Yeah,
worthy of following Batman. And I think they also destroy a Robin recently. Not sure which one, but
yeah. They messed with him. Um, yeah,
I think it
it
was
is, and that's a
Drake.
good point. Yeah, like, but just taking the character seriously and like, what your boy Zach mentions in one of his YouTube videos, like there's a line from old Robin where there's a point where he's gonna die, and his last thought as he's about to die is he says like, Batman's gonna be disappointed in me. And then
Yeah,
that's like a character moment that's like
yeah,
sums up Robin's character in a nutshell, like perfectly. Like that's all gone too. Yeah, it's like what it is now. But
yeah. It's as you said, it's more depressing the more we talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
This is not where I wanted to go with this conversation. I'm sorry, man.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, what about got any more questions for me?
Yep, I have one more. Because I have touched a bit about that earlier. Do you feel that internet is a battlefield, like a real battlefield for art in general and culture? Because as I stated, comics was like a sacred thing in America, at least back in the day, like 70s, 80s, 90s. You couldn't desacralize comics and character and stuff like that. Like everyone loved Superman, everyone loved Batman and stuff like that. So and it seems that today everyone is trying to claim it, like it's my thing, it's not yours, and it's not a uniting thing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I do kind of think, yeah, there's like a culture war going on the internet, and it is kind of crazy out there. You'll meet like people will get swatted, or you might be in danger of like a little bit of threat of some physical violence or whatever.
My God.
Luckily, nothing's been too crazy yet about, yeah, like no one's been like, I don't think anyone's even been like punched or stabbed, but there's been threats of that. Yeah, so it is like weird. It is weird. I wonder, it's some of this has been around though. Like I heard an anecdote about oh shoot, what's his name? It's the guy who wrote A Boy and His Dog. He's a sci-fi writer. And Harlan Ellison is his name. So he got shot, and he tells the story, so I don't know the other side of the story, but it was a disgruntled reader because he was a famous
What the fuck?
contrarian and kind of a yeah, a dick or whatever. And a disgruntled reader like tried to kill him, basically shot him, but he like somehow survived and stole the gun and arrested the guy or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so that kind of thing is like has been a thing. But so a lot of people will use PO boxes because they don't want to give out their real addresses.
Mm,
A lot of people go anonymous, which technically I'm anonymous, although I don't particularly care. It's not like I'm trying to protect a day job or anything. Although that is a thing, like they'll try and get you fired from your job. That's
mm.
kind of part of that cancel culture thing that in general, that's like at the most basic level, that's what I'm against. And that is, to me, that's like an art kind of thing. Like I'm really for like art, creating art, more creation. I'm against censorship. I'm against self-censorship because that's kind of the biggest way that cancel culture bleeds in to this self-censorship, and that you end up, the whole landscape of art suffers, and you can't even find like a fun, like new point of view or a new kind of voice that would come up. Because yeah, like the way that some of the culture stuff started was the kind of far left infiltrators. They were thinking, oh yeah, we'll get new art, we'll get new points of view by not hiring white dudes anymore. That was like their idea, but that didn't really work because like a lot of they end up getting like one point of view, but it's from the they get like the diversity of skin color, but then the point of view is all the same.
Yes.
And like you want the point of views to be diverse is kind of where you get the best art. and and a little bit of arguing or disagreement is actually like probably good, but they aren't even really allowing for that because the camps are so entrenched. That's where like I wish some of these pros that they pick their side and they kind of like side with their friends or whatever. Like one example is Sean Gordon Murphy. So he will not associate with Comicsgate, even though we love him and we love his art, but he won't talk to us. And because he's kind of sort of friends with Magdalene Visaggio, who is one of the more like far left creators that does sometimes get criticized by Comicsgate, and she hates Comicsgate. So if Sean Gordon Murphy hung out with Comicsgate, she would like disassociate from him. Not only that, she would like uh, try to cancel him probably. And what's funny though is that kind of like happened. Like she accused him of love bombing, which I don't even know exactly what that is, but I think she was accused him of being extra nice to her just so he would have the shield of having a trans friend, was like what she accused him of. And then so he survived it. He didn't really get canceled, but that kind of exploded their friendship because he thought they were being friends and he thought he was standing up to Comicsgate on her behalf. Meanwhile, from her point of view, he was not even doing it enough. And he might have, because I think he crowdfunded, I don't know if he crowdfunded on Indiegogo. That alone is too much Comicscape for her because you got to do Kickstarter. You can't do Indiegogo. That's like a weird
Oh
thing
yeah, I
too.
heard
That
that one that depending on the site you go, it's like a flag, for example, like oh you support this or that. You have
I know,
to
which is
choose.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's just to what you're saying of it being like a battlefield. But that's like the thing that I don't like. I wish that Sean Gordon Murphy, like he's kind of one of my favorite artists. I want to be his friend. But even like on live streams, we've I've been on so many live streams that I've talked some shit about him, even, kind of behind his back. And I'm worried, like, oh, has he seen that? So he
Mm.
like hates me now. Because that's another thing online. Like, they can take things too personally, and friendships can break down
Yes.
faster than you would think. That's another bummer.
Especially
Is like
since
you'd have an internet friend.
with what
Yeah.
you said with the live stream, like I quite enjoyed as heel versus babyface content. I tried to get in touch with him, but to no avail to this day. And there is also like the Star Wars girls and all of that kind of people that meet up and do big live stream with sometimes like 10 people, 10 guests, and people trying to give their opinion and stuff. And I think that this is one of the battlefield of the this culture world of today. Like if the one with the bigger audience on said live stream with all of these friends like is dominating the war, the conflict, or something like that. This definitely have a war feel to me.
Yeah. 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 It is kind of like that. Yeah. So hopefully some of that will be less so, and this divide between the indies and the pros can lessen, because there are these pros that they're only self-censoring because they're scared, really. And if that ended, it's not like they'd have to join Confiscate and start crowdfunding, but if they could just talk to us, that would be very fruitful for both sides, I think.
Yeah, and
um
speaking about that, with the indie against the pros, is it that clear cut, or there is sometimes overlap, like one indie that goes pro and one pros that go indie or something like that, or is it
no. Yeah,
really?
yeah. I think that's like one way that you can frame it that's actually very accurate without even saying comic skate. Like you could just say it's indie versus pros. Because if a pro goes indie, if a pro starts to crowdfund and they use Indiegogo, they will get like canceled by their friends. It's that yeah, they call it the crabs in a bucket thing where like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
friends are
yeah.
pulling them down. They're trying to climb out and their friends will get like offended, and not all their friends, but some of these like more radicalized kind of crazy friends. um, and yeah, it's a bummer. You want to tell them like, hey, they weren't your friend to begin with. If they'll quit being your friend over this thing, that happened to someone in Comicsgate, Rini Sterklovsky. She's a female artist, worked for Marvel. When she joined Comicsgate, she had a bunch of her friends, or friends, like all like DMing her saying, "Don't do that. You don't know what you're doing. Like you don't want to associate with them." And meanwhile, her like lived experience is like they're nice. Nobody's sexist and racist. I don't know what you're talking about. Um and it's actually fun, and I'm making money and making friends. Like I have no idea what you're talking about. So the disconnect is like strong, uh too, of like the perception of like
Hmm.
reality almost of what. Because yeah, I don't know, like with Comicsgate, like one with I saw an example, one of a little bit of what they were saying to her, these old pros. And yeah, they list a lot of stuff from 2017, which is now almost 5 years ago.
Yes.
And it was like that initial fight between Richard Meyer and the milkshake girls. And that was like, just like to put that in context too, that was like they were going at each other. So they were trying to cancel his Patreon and his YouTube channel. So they're trying to like ruin his life, get him to their his opinion. He has like trauma from it, and he says they're trying to get you to kill yourself is like their
Yes.
actual goal.
Yes.
And they have done that. They've gotten people to kill themselves in the past,
Yeah,
and
in
it's
the
crazy.
video game sphere, I think there was one person that a guy that killed himself for Zoe
Yeah,
Quinn,
Alex
I think.
Halalpa.
Yeah, Zoe, yeah, that was Zoe Quinn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, Zoe Quinn did that. Yeah.
very very dark stuff. Dark stuff. Is that's the thing about it. It's if you watch everything, video games, comics, and stuff from a certain point of view, like a neophyte, you say, oh, it's just children fighting over, a toy or something. But no, this is, as you said, livelihood, mental health, reputation. It's life destroying. It's murder. It's murder.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like art too. Like
Yeah,
it's on this like forefront of culture in some ways that these comic books trickle down to influence movies, influence music, influence everything. And yeah, they know that. That's why they want to control it. And yeah, that issue um of what yeah, of oh, so yeah, just the vitriol of that initial fight. Um your boy Zach said some like stuff that out of context does sound bad. But it's like so they use that, but it's like 5 years ago. So I don't know.
yeah. They can hold a grudge.
Yeah.
I have one final thing for you. It's just a funny one. Imagine you had a genie coming out of a bottle and let me start again. Grant you a wish, whatever you want, like changing reality, raising people from the dead, whatever. What would you ask?
Oh, yeah, good question. I don't know. I've got tunnel vision so much on like my current mission that I might
The
wish
mission.
for something. Yeah, yeah. I might wish for something along those lines of just to get all my well, yeah, so either a fantastical wish would be like to fly. And then a non-fantastical wish would be like, yeah, let me get all my books out. But I like the process, but make sure I do it, have some collaborators, and maybe get to start like an animation company. Something like that would be like my dream.
Yeah, I feel you, man. It, sometimes because this is a regular question I ask to all my guests. Well, when I can, it's the wish. So, and for me, well, I would just ask for money, like $50 billion. Here, go on.
Yeah,
But yeah, this is the same. I just want, to live my life while working on my stuff, but being able to do it without being worried about cancel culture, about being destroyed by someone who is offended by something I said like 10 years ago. It's very,
yeah,
very
yeah.
crazy.
You know what's crazy too? One last thing is it is funny how it's sort of counterintuitive that if you get canceled, sometimes that's like the best thing that'll happen to you in the long run, or it's actually really good marketing is when people are actually talking about you and fighting about you. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
like like you said, your mental health, it's like crazy. You're like, but your book will actually get a lot of sales from it. Um, and yeah, so if you get you just kind of stay the course and try
Well,
and keep calm and carry on, as they say.
it also depends on the scale of the canceling you are submit to, because for me, for example, I have a bit of a situation myself. Can't unfortunately talk much about it because there is some legal stuff and all, but yeah, I definitely had the sensation that they're trying to kill me, or at least like forbidding me to even trying to do stuff. And yeah, it's very very
Yeah,
hard for the mental health. And if you are low enough, you can't even go off the ground, you can't even start.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, if you can talk about that at some point, that might help you if people know that it could help your. But who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, sorry to hear that. It is crazy.
Well, yeah, it's a very sad story and a complicated thing, so I can't talk much about it, unfortunately, as I said, legal stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah, I have the
yeah.
same dream as you.
I yeah, and I can't remember if I said this, but when I was working on Machete Squad for Dead Reckoning, and I pitched them Foreign Agent, then I jumped into Comicsgate from there. They called me, and they were like, we understand you're associating with some less than like
Seriously?
good types. Yeah, yeah. And I was like, they're fine. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, well, blah, blah, blah. Just probably shouldn't do it for association with our company. I was like, okay. So I kept doing it and then I never talked to them again. I probably got canceled by them. Like, they won't hire me now just because I hung out with Comicsgate. But, but like, I don't care. I'm not missing anything in that case.
Man, it's
So,
really like a gang stories. Ah, you are from the Bloods, the Crips, the biker gang, the I don't know. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know it is crazy and it is weird and it is like there's a little bit of a mental health thing. There's a thing navigating it as you enter that can be disorienting too cuz like at this point now like I have a lot of friends, I have like the community that trusts and supports and if anyone comes in to give me shit then I don't matter it doesn't matter that much and even I'll have defenders or whatever.
Mm,
But when you're first getting started, yeah, you don't even know and you're kind of nervous like what if I pick the wrong side or something? But a lot of it shakes out naturally, and if you just kind of stay positive and network, it kind of works out.
all right.
Hopefully, you know. But
So far I succeeded, as you said, because I kept course. But yeah, from once or twice I had very hard time. Navigating, as you say, because yeah, my condition is not well suited to deal with such event. Before you go, I have a
yeah.
question from the chat because I have my dear friend Arden Paddy here. It's the woodworker I talked to you about, with the interview and stuff.
Oh, nice, cool.
So he's asking, what's your favorite comics villain you'd like to do a solo series for?
Oh, yeah. Let me think. Maybe Sabretooth, rival of Wolverine. That's like a quick answer. There might be. I like Venom from Spider-Man. Um, probably one of those, maybe.
One I would like to do in the realms of big villain. Yeah, I think it would be Doctor Fatalis. I think it is a very cool character because many people think that he's just a cheap villain from the Fantastic Four, the very old cartoon, but he's in fact very powerful and very
Yeah,
intelligent.
that's cool. Yeah, if you can, yeah, you can sometimes, it's not like even changing the character, it's just zooming in on him, giving him more and like giving him
Yeah.
more respect, more attention. That's sort of like what even like Frank Miller did, arguably. Like, I don't know if he, as much as he changed, is
Mm.
just like zooming in.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that outside of the very old cartoon of X-Men, we didn't see Sabretooth. Maybe
Yeah,
quickly in the movie, with the bad Deadpool, but mm, outside that, no, nothing.
yeah, like having him be where he's actually like the hulking kind of scary guy that even Wolverine's afraid of him, and Wolverine technically can't beat him in a fight unless he's like lucky, and that like the stakes are so high and fascinating and interesting. Whereas like that was one when they switched Wolverine to X-23, so he's a girl now. She beats Sabretooth in one punch, and it's like boring. There's no stakes. Kind of like the Star Wars thing, like that's part of the thing they lose.
One Punch Girl.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but well, that's honestly, I didn't expect that the comics state was so bad and so depressing. It's almost like the front line of nerd culture that is fought without knowing, because if you think about it, and I always come back to this idea. So we are more or less from the same generation. I have 44 years old. And back in the days when you were a nerd, you were bullied and beat up. Today,
yeah,
this is not the same, and we had to fight for what we love. When I was a kid, loving Ninja Turtles or having a Jurassic Park T-shirt, yeah, I have to fight for wearing that. So, and comics were at the basis of every nerd culture I can imagine. Like the very old nerd culture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Dungeons and Dragons and comics are two of like the base levels where it all stems
Yeah.
from, kind of.
Well, thank you for fighting the war for us, man. We thank you for your service.
Yeah. And no problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good talking to you.
Yeah,
And yeah,
no
we can
worries.
talk on my channel sometime. Good luck with your project. Keep me posted and everything.
Yeah, sure, we can talk, and if you want to invite me, well, I will be delighted. But as I said, I'm not a cloud chaser, and I'm not, like a bitch who want to be everywhere and be friends with everyone. I'm more like, if I can, sure, this is what I would like, but I'm not like comfortable with taking things. I don't know if you understand what I
Oh
mean.
yeah. Yeah. It's no problem. I would enjoy it, but you probably will wait till your campaign is ready to launch or launched so that we can like
It
actually
it's
promote it
it
healthily.
starts the 15th of December.
Okay. So yeah, that'll be like around then. Um
Yeah, and
time
we, we,
around
we
then.
can talk a bit more in DM and chat and everything. And if you want, some information about doing live stream with Discord, I can help you also.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, sorry guys, it's not 44, it's 34. Sorry, I'm very tired. It's late for me.
Oh yeah, nice.
So, well, I will leave you there, chat. Thank you for coming by, and see you soon. I will have an interview this weekend with Bleach Demon. We will talk about America, history, and culture. We will talk about burgers. Have a nice one, chat.